Trump justifies $2 billion made as president with inaccurate claims. It's a headline that feels almost too recent for some of us, but this story is wrapped up in a few very real facts. President Trump claimed that the staggering $2.2 billion he reported in his 2025 financial disclosure had come from the ever-rising stock market and that he was the only president ever to donate his salary. In light of his office's power, those assertions were put under the microscope. First, let's look at the numbers. His reported revenue jumped a staggering 250% in his first year in office. By contrast, the big market indices have not been that dramatic. Since he took office on January 20, 2025, the S&P 500 has risen about 24%, the Dow Jones about 19%, and the Nasdaq Composite about 33%. Fidelity Investments says the average 401k balance grew 11% between the last quarter of 2024 and the last quarter of 2025. Those gains are short of underscoring Trump's narrative of 85% stock market growth that he used to explain his own earnings. In fact, only around a quarter of his windfall can even be loosely tied to broad market performance. The bulk of that $2.2 billion has more to do with Excel-type ventures than the overall market. Over $1.4 billion of it came from his cryptocurrency activities. Two of his Florida real estate assets, the Mar-a-Lago Club and the Trump National Doral Golf Club, each brought in close to $100 million, and other branding deals added a minimum of $55 million. In addition, he earned roughly $87 million in settlements from news media companies. By combining those sources, we see that more than 3/4 of the total windfall came from a handful of very large, but very specific deals. Then there is the trust claim. Trump's spokesperson Anna Kelly said the president's assets are held in fully discretionary accounts managed by independent third-party financial institutions. Musk's policy narrative calls that a blind trust. But the ethics agreement issued last year by the Trump Organization characterizes the arrangement as a revocable trust, not a blind one. Since the 1970s, every president who has owned individual stocks and bonds has resorted to a blind trust to avoid conflicts of interest. The Trump Organization structure does not meet that precedent. The article notes that his use of a revocable trust falls short of the standard used by his predecessors. Finally, Trump's claim that he donated his presidential salary is not supported by the record. The fact check states that his statements about that claim are false, and it includes the sentence that none of those assertions are true, which lists that point. No mention of any receipt or public documentation supports the donation narrative. Anna Kelly wrapped up the administration's stance by saying he implemented policies that have made all Americans wealthier and more prosperous. That forward-looking claim lines up with the spin many have thrust into the marketplace, but the table of numbers and sources shows the windfall is considerably more self-contained than it appears. In short, Trump's $2 billion windfall is a headline-grabbing headline, but the story underneath is complex and, according to the fact check, largely inaccurate. It reminds us that the stories we hear in the morning briefing need to be weighed against the hard numbers underneath. That's all from us. Thank you for listening, and stay curious. Until next time.